Boy, that's the last time I shoot my mouth off about the end of the year being a time where maybe it'll be quiet and there won't be any news, right? Isn't that what I said last week? I knew I was going to regret that. As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I was going to live to regret those words. You know, MJF, in the lead up to tonight's World's End pay-per-view, did a very long essay for the website, the Players Tribune. And we've had other wrestlers. Eddie Kingston did one. There have been a few others where they just have the chance to just write about whatever it is they want to write about. And so MJF had a lot to get off his chest. And one of the things that he mentioned in this long essay that he had was every time something positive happens for him, every time there's something big in his career, there's always something negative that comes along with it. There's always some kind of controversy or some kind of drama that is there to overshadow whatever it is that he's doing, right? It happened last year in Chicago, Brawl Out, right? That was the night that MJF came back, Adam Cole getting hurt, right? And we wake up this morning to Chris Jericho trending on Twitter. Now, Chris Jericho was already trending on Twitter earlier this week. He was trending on Twitter on Christmas morning. So while NORAD was tracking Santa as he was delivering gifts to all the little brats all over the world, and people were waking up in the morning or getting ready to wake up in the morning to open up their Christmas gifts, Chris Jericho was busy on Twitter at 4 o'clock in the morning arguing with CM Punk's lawyer. No doubt with a bottle of Grey Goose half empty sitting next to him. Maybe I'm giving him more credit. Maybe it was a completely empty bottle of Grey Goose sitting next to him. I wake up this morning, I go online, and I see Chris Jericho trending again, and I said, are we still talking about Brawl Out? Are we still talking about this? And then I go online, I go, oh, no, we're not. No, we've moved on to the next controversy now. And I immediately thought of the MJF essay, and I said, this son of a bitch was right. Here we are again. And yet again, MJF in the main event in his hometown here on Long Island, defending the championship in the main event, once again overshadowed by someone else's bullshit. And I know a lot of people are going to want to talk about the Chris Jericho stuff, and we're not going to talk about the Chris Jericho stuff because that's for tomorrow. We got a show to talk about tonight, but I'll leave it at this. If Chris Jericho on Monday morning had simply gone to bed and woken up in the morning like every other normal fucking person and opened up Christmas gifts with his kids and his family at his house, this whole situation that he now finds himself in, and he found himself in the middle of Nassau Coliseum tonight being booed, all could have been avoided. And in a way, I'm glad it worked out the way that it did, because if we come to find out that there's truth to all these different things, I'm glad it's out in the open now. But this all could have been avoided if he would have kept his mouth shut. But he couldn't help himself. So I have no sympathy for him. He's in a real pickle right now. And so is AEW potentially. Now, the press conference was not yet underway. It was about to begin as I was getting ready to go live here on this stream. So I don't know what Tony Khan is going to say. I mean, I can imagine what Tony Khan is not going to say. I can't tell you what Tony Khan is going to say. I don't have it on in front of me right now. I am sure that if somebody asks him the $1 million question, and it would be malpractice if somebody did not, he's not going to give a straight answer. That's going to be a very big headache for him and AEW going forward. There's going to have to be a reckoning as far as that goes, or an investigation or something, because that is something that is not going to go away. The boo birds that were out tonight on Long Island, that is not going to go away. So they have a very big problem on their hands as far as he's concerned. And we'll address that. But as far as tonight's show is concerned, the main event of this show was built around the Devil's storyline. Were we going to get the reveal of who the Devil was in this MJF ongoing saga that has been playing out now for several months? I was hoping we would, because this storyline has already peaked, and the only way to keep it semi-interesting was to give us an answer. Who is the Devil? You've got to turn the page and move on to the next chapter of this story, right? That's what I said on Wednesday during the Dynamite review. I hope we get the reveal on the pay-per-view on Saturday. Well, we did. We did, in fact, get the reveal tonight. We got the Devil reveal on this show, and it was the most obvious choice. It was the person who was right in front of us the entire time. The devil is Adam Cole. Not only is the devil Adam Cole, but what did I tell you on Wednesday after we had the Devil's Men beating MJF to win the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles? I said, it's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. It's the Kingdom. It's the only thing that makes sense. And for the first time, I said, you know what? Maybe it really is Adam Cole. Here we are. We're all sitting around speculating on who it could be. Maybe it's this person. People thought maybe it was Britt Baker. Jungle Boy, right? You're going to have a lot of people very happy that Jack Perry is not the devil. I don't know what that means for him because he's been off television since August. I don't know if he's ever coming back. Everybody's been speculating for weeks and weeks and weeks. Maybe it's MJF himself. Maybe it's Roderick Strong. It was the most obvious answer. It was Adam Cole with his henchmen as Roddy, the Kingdom, and Wardlow. And we've had Wardlow on television telling us for weeks that, Max, your world is about to come to an end, right? He's been dropping these not so subtle hints about World's End. So you knew he was going to factor into this in some way. You had to know that he was going to be one of the Devil's henchmen. My question is this. The last few weeks, and we've seen the Devil's masked men, right? They keep coming out of the crowd. There's 6 of them, 8 of them, 10 of them. What happened to the other ones? Did they pay off a bunch of people just to come along for the ride on those shows? What happened to the other 12 that we've seen? I don't know. But tonight, we got the 4. We got Roddy, we got the Kingdom, we got Wardlow, and then, of course, Cole as the devil. But that was the big reveal at the end of the show. But that's not even the biggest story. Actually, the biggest story of the night doesn't involve any of this. And I'll talk about that briefly in a little bit, too. I'm telling you, just nonstop news all day here this weekend. But the other story here is that not only do we have the devil now, we have a brand new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Yes, we do. MJF is no longer the MJF title reign is now over. It has come to an end. And going into 2024, Samoa Joe, for the first time in his career, is the AEW World Champion. Samoa Joe holds a world title for the first time. I mean, if you want to count NXT, I guess you can. So that would go back to what, 2015 probably? But you'd have to go back even further than that to when he was the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. So you're going back a long ways. Never got his shot in WWE. Kept getting hurt. Kept suffering injuries. There was always something. Plus, Vince McMahon didn't see him as a champion. There were a lot of things working against him when he was in WWE. But I said, man, he deserves a run as champion. Man, he still goes out there. He cuts some of the best promos in the business. If he could just stay healthy. This man could be a world heavyweight champion again. He's been able to do that so far in AEW. He's been able to stay healthy, and now he is a world champion. And for whatever you want to say about this pay-per-view, and I thought this was a middle-of-the-road show tonight, that put a smile on my face. I am happy that Samoa Joe is once again a world heavyweight champion. It has nothing to do with me not liking MJF as the world champion, but just the fact that they put the belt on Joe, and Joe is going to get a run. I don't know how long this run is going to be. It may not be that long. I like that. It sounded like you could hear a pin drop in that building when they did that finish, too. The way they did the finish to that main event, people were shocked. They thought it was a botch. They're like, what the hell happened here? MJF passes out in a sleeper. The arm drops 3 times. That's about as clean of a finish as you could think of. And Samoa Joe is the new AEW World Champion. Now, there's going to be a lot of people, because of the finish of this match, who are going to be speculating about what this means for MJF's future in AEW, right? His contract. He is adamant that he has not re-signed a deal with AEW. I don't believe him, but he has maintained that publicly, that he has not re-signed with AEW and he doesn't know what his future holds. There's no way in my mind that Tony Khan did not get this guy signed to a longer-term deal a long time ago. He is not going to leave AEW. I don't believe that. What I do believe is that he is hurt. He may even need surgery. And I think he needs some time off because I think that he has been running himself ragged. He's probably been hurting for a long time. This is his big break. This is his world title run. He doesn't want to give that up. He doesn't want his title run to come to an end because of injury and surrender the belt, right? Like CM Punk had to when he got hurt. And so it's probably just been piling up and the torn labrum in the hip, and he needs to go away. He needs to go away and get himself healthy. That is what I think he is going to do, and then he will be back And then we will get the continuation of this storyline. Now, it is a little odd to me that they've been doing this devil stuff. And if you think about it, you take it all the way back to Wembley Stadium when MJF beat Adam Cole. And it probably goes all the way back there, right? Cole sees the way that MJF has gotten over. He sees the way that he's won over the fans. And then he loses to him. And so now he hatches this master plan to get back at him. But now Samoa Joe is the champion. So it's not as if they were trying to preserve the title so that when Cole heals up, he could win it. Or maybe have Wardlow win the title, right? Maybe Wardlow is now part of this group, makes a deal with them and says, look, I want to be the one to beat him and win that title. To be honest with you, that would have made a lot of sense, even though Wardlow's been ice cold. So it is a little bit strange that for all of the devil's tormenting in this entire story, Adam Cole is out there at ringside for the main event. He just lets Samoa Joe win the title. He didn't even really do anything to make it happen. There was one point during the match where, MJF is like, give me the ring, and he's kind of fumbling around for it, and then finally he finds it, but that's about as close as we got to Adam Cole doing anything to cost him the championship. It was pretty much a clean win for Samoa Joe. So if you think about it, like, was that the plan all along, that the devil was just going to not get involved, and then regardless of the outcome of the match, he would reveal himself? I don't know. That you have to just suspend your disbelief, I guess, because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But Samoa Joe is the champion now. MJF, I think, is going to go away for a period of time. Adam Cole, I'm not so convinced that Adam Cole, the whole thing was a ruse. He was still hobbling around on one foot when the show was over. It's not like he pulled the boot off his foot and threw it away. He's hurt. It's not like he's going to be able to get back in the ring in the next few weeks. How long is Adam Cole going to be out for? He could be out for another 6 months. How are they going to keep this storyline fresh and interesting between now and then? That's the question. But you have two people who are hurt, and they needed to move on to something else. Samoa Joe is that person. I happen to believe that Swerve Strickland is going to be AEW World Heavyweight Champion next year. I think it could happen as early as Revolution. I think your Revolution main event could be Samoa Joe and Swerve. It could happen on that show. Maybe Joe is only there to be the transitional champion and get the belt from point A to point B. We'll have to let things play out and see how things go. But when you think about what we got here on this show, we got Samoa Joe as the new AEW World Champion. Christian Cage heroically wins back the TNT Championship moments after losing it. And Eddie Kingston is the winner of the Continental Classic. He is the first Triple Crown champion in AEW, which seemed to be obvious once we could see that Eddie was going to the finals of this tournament. It became pretty clear that this was the Eddie Kingston story. We just didn't realize it initially, but this entire time, the entire tournament has been built around the Eddie Kingston story. And so the people saying, oh, that's disappointing. Oh, that all this for Eddie Kingston. I guarantee you, these are some of the same people, in some cases, who for the longest time were saying, oh, I wish Tony Khan would do something with Eddie Kingston, when Eddie was sort of being phased down in the background there for a while, before he won the Ring of Honor title. Why isn't he doing more with Eddie Kingston? Eddie is organically over with the crowd. He's easy to cheer for. I'd love to see him get a run at the title, even if he doesn't win it, right? People were saying these things. These people should be happy that he got a big win on this show. And again, it meant a lot to him because he grew up on 90s All Japan. So him standing in the ring with those 3 titles, I was happy for. But even though we had a strong main event, we had a strong final to the Continental Classic, which wasn't even the best match of the tournament, but it was still very good. And we had a pretty wild brawl between Copeland and Christian. Adam Copeland now has the dubious distinction of being the shortest reigning TNT champion of all time. But that was a very good match. This felt like a very middle of the road show. This will not go down as one of the stronger AEW pay-per-views of the year. It was not a bust, but they have had some incredible pay-per-views. This was not an incredible pay-per-view. This was very much a middle-of-the-road effort, not one of their stronger shows. I mentioned before, though, that there was some big news. We had the Devil reveal, Joe is champion, the Jericho stuff obviously speaks for itself. That may not even be the biggest news of the entire night. And I have to mention this before we move on, because as I'm sitting here watching this pay-per-view, I see that Mike Johnson on PW Insider on his deathbed. Apparently Mike has COVID and he crawled back into bed and went to sleep right after he posted this story. But Mike Johnson goes on PW Insider and posts a story that one of the longest tenured employees in World Wrestling Entertainment has given notice that he is leaving WWE, and that person is Kevin Dunn. Kevin Dunn is done with WWE. See, that's how you know that Vince McMahon truly has lost power in that company. Because he saw the writing on the wall. He's only worked for one guy his entire adult life, Vince McMahon. Once Vince went away and it became clear that he was pretty much gone, Kevin Dunn said, you know what? Peace out. And Tony Khan better not get any ideas. Because, you know, Mike Mansouri, who's working now for Tony Khan, he's sweating bullets right now. That's the whole reason he lost, or left, I should say, WWE in the first place. He wanted to be the top guy on that production team. He knew Kevin Dunn wasn't going anywhere. He said, you know what? There's nowhere for me to go. I'm going to leave. So he ended up in AEW. He's going to hear this news. He's going to be looking at his phone. He's going to be wiping his brow. Tony Khan better not get any ideas. But that's huge news. And again, we'll get more into that tomorrow on the podcast. But news galore. We got to talk about this show. This is your AEW Worlds End review for December 30th. Now, technically, it is December 31st, 2023. I am the Solomonster. Thank you for staying up late with me. Do subscribe. Do hit the like button. 400 likes is the goal tonight to do our Be the Booker segment. If we hit 400, we will do that later on. Super chats are open. Hey, Boots, if Boots is still with us, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Very kind of you. And I should mention here, before we go on, I should mention the fact that it is technically now New Year's Eve. And tomorrow, or later today, I'm going to be live back here again on YouTube. We're going to ring in the new year together. It's the Make It Till Midnight Countdown to 2024. We got a lot to talk about. And so come on back here tomorrow night. We're going to ring in the new year together. So I wanted to make sure I mention that here before we move on, because this is a very busy weekend. I should have known better. I told you, I should not have said anything at the end of the podcast last week. I said I am expecting a relatively quiet week going into the pay-per-view. It should be calm before we hit New Year's Day. Fuck me. Let's talk about the 0-hour pre-show. Let's breeze through this because it opened with the Battle of Long Island. Chris Statlander against Willow Nightingale. Willow from Nassau County in Long Island, and you had Statlander from Suffolk County. These two were having a good match until the final couple of minutes, and then it fell apart at the very end. Statlander got powerbombed on the apron at one point. Willow tried for a Dr. Bomb. Statlander countered her into position for her Saturday Night Fever finish, and Willow slipped out. Tried for an enziguri. It barely glanced Statlander. She sold it anyway. Statlander put Willow down with a discus lariat, went up for a 450 splash. Willow was able to avoid the splash, and then she tried for a Dr. Bomb. And whoever's fault it was, didn't go upright for it. It looked very wonky here, almost dropped her. And when she finally did kind of take her over for the Dr. Bomb, it looked like Statlander landed with her ass right on Willow's face. And so I got to get rid of this guy. And so obviously didn't look good. They realized it didn't look good. And so she tried for a pin anyway. Statlander, though, barely got a shoulder up. Willow tried again, this time hit a better version of the move, got the pin. So basically they redid the spot, is what they did. And it looked a little bit better the second time. And again, it's unfortunate because I thought up until that point it was a good match, but it just fell apart at the finish. You know, it happens. We got a video package for the returning Serena Deeb. She is finally going to be back soon on television, back in the women's division, so they will get her back at least on that women's roster. If you missed it, Serena recently, she mentioned that she had suffered 3 concussions. She suffered 3 unprovoked seizures, and she was working with her doctors to try to figure out what the cause of it was, and that's why she's been gone for pretty much a year. But she has been medically cleared, And so they put a whole video package together for her. She said that she's been locked in the dojo and cannot be caged any longer. Takes 10,000 hours to become a master. Called herself the woman of 1,000 holds. And she says when she is at her best, she is magic. She said Serena Deeb is ready to return. So it'll be good to have her back. We had a 20-man battle royal for a shot at the TNT Championship. Anytime, anywhere. That was the stipulation. Once I saw who was actually in this thing, it became painfully obvious who was going to win the battle royal. It was Killswitch, Trent Beretta, Lance Archer, Rocky Romero, Danhausen, The Butcher and the Blade, Action Andretti, Darius Martin, Christopher Daniels, Matt Menard, Brian Keith, Kip Sabian, John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Angelo Parker, Lee Johnson, Johnny TV, yes, he is still employed, Dalton Castle, and Serpentico. That was the lineup for the Battle Royal. Now, multiple guys, they trapped Lance Archer and Killswitch, the dinosaur, under tables outside the ring, and then they all got back in the ring and started the match. So basically, the big guys, they got a little rest period there for a while. They laid on the outside of the ring for a while. Crowd was disappointed when Dalton Castle got dumped out not 2 minutes into this match because they're doing an angle right now where he is basically at his lowest. He's at his lowest and he's in a downward spiral. That's why they got rid of him very quickly. By the way, when Dalton Castle came out, he had the boys with him. Those obviously were not the Tate twins, right? I mean, was I just seeing things because it didn't look anything like them? I mean, in any way. Plus, they were a lot bigger. So unless the Tate twins got on the gas, I don't think that was actually the boys. And they never took the masks off, so I assume they just weren't there. So Lance Archer, he rises from the dead. He gets into the ring and he's running wild. Killswitch reemerges. We got a battle of the giants. Final four were Archer, Killswitch, Danhausen, and Trent Beretta. Beretta and Danhausen, they both eliminated Archer, and then they did the best friends hug. Beretta then turned on Danhausen, dumped him out of the ring, and came down to Trent Beretta and Killswitch. They ended up on the apron. Killswitch knocked him off the apron to the floor, and predictably he wins the Battle Royal, which means that the dinosaur has a TNT title shot that he could cash in anytime, any place. It just so happened that we had a TNT title match coming up later on in the show, so you could see where this was going. We had Hook against Wheeler Yuta for the FTW Championship. Yuta cut a very whiny promo on Long Island for Cheap Heat. He was healing on the sports teams. And look, a lot of heels do this. This was cringe. And it was dying a death. So finally, he was like a mercy killing. They played Hook's music and he came down to the ring. So it was contested under FTW rules. So basically a hardcore match, which allowed them to use all kinds of weapons and plunder. Yuta was bleeding from, I believe it was above the right eye. Hook pulled a hockey stick out from underneath the ring. He used it to trip Yuta. He reached into the ring with it and tripped him, but he broke the hockey stick in the process. I don't know how he did that. I don't know what kind of cheap piece of crap hockey stick they gave him, but it broke. So then he took the handle of the hockey stick into the ring with him, was using it as a weapon. And then he used it across Yuta's throat when he applied Red Rum, and Yuta tapped out for the submission win. So, look, this was a fine little brawl here for the pre-show. Hook, he was over on Long Island, but he is nowhere near as over as he was 6 months ago or a year ago, you know, when he first really burst out onto the scene. This kid was like a phenomenon. He would come out, he never spoke, he would come to the ring, he would go to the corner and just sort of lounge out there and look out at the crowd. The bell would ring. He was picking up guys, giving them T-bones and all kinds of suplexes. And then he would beat them and he would leave. And he had this cool factor about him. People would go nuts for him. And again, he's over, but just not at that level. And now he's settling in. Because again, he's not in a position where he should be wrestling in main events or anything like that. It was never going to last. So now he's getting the reps in. And the more, you watch him, you can see he gets a little bit better, and he's got to learn to have longer matches, because at first his matches weren't that long. So that's kind of the phase he's in right now. FTW title I mean, it may mean something to him because his father created it. The FTW title doesn't mean anything, though, as far as AEW is concerned. But it's, it's a fine spot for him to be in. So the main card kicked off with what they billed as an all-star 8-man tag, which sounds a lot better than calling it a match with most of the losers from the Continental Classic. We had Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia taking on Brody King, Roosh, Jay Lethal, and Switchblade Jay White. Less than a week away from the Tokyo Dome and his rematch with Okada, I said a prayer for Bryan Danielson before this match began. I said, please, oh please, let his brittle body hold up. Because all he has to do is get past tonight so he can get on that plane and he can fly to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. It looks like he got through the show okay tonight, so we're good. Looks like we're going to actually get the match and we're going to be okay. We got our first interaction between Danielson and Jay White, and it was brief, but I look forward to the actual singles match eventually between the two, especially because we're heading into his last full-time year. We got to get something between Danielson and Jay White at some point. Garcia tagged himself into the match, and he came nose-to-nose with Brody King. And Garcia, the only points he picked up in the entire Continental Classic came at the expense of Brody King. And Brody King was not very happy about this, so he beat the crap out of this kid. And they ended up outside the ring, and he got up in Matt Menard's face, because Matt Menard has been doing commentary for Daniel Garcia's matches and cheering him on. So he was on commentary. He was just in the Battle Royal, too. But he was on commentary. Brody King goes over to Matt Menard, and they come nose to nose, right? They're right up in each other's face. And Brody King says, "You ain't gonna do shit. You're a bitch." And Matt Menard, in fact, did not do anything. And he sat back down, as I think anybody would if you were confronted by somebody who looked like Brody King and he called you a bitch and said that you're not going to do anything. And Nigel McGuinness told him to sit down or he would risk being fined. That's right, Danielson was there too. See, that would have been kind of funny, actually. Have Danielson walk over, take out his trusty pad, start writing out the ticket, hand it over to Matt Menard. So Garcia came up, he was bleeding from the nose. His nose may have been broken. I didn't see how it happened. I just saw the blood pouring out of his nose. Back inside, Roosh was mocking Garcia's silly little dance that he does. And finally, he was able to get free, Garcia was. Briscoe made the hot tag. He cleaned house. Danielson flew to the floor. He took out Roosh. Claudio was lighting up Brody with some uppercuts. Mark Briscoe hit a cactus elbow off the apron onto Roosh. Inside the ring, Briscoe hit a fisherman's bomb on Jay White for a near fall. Jay White spun out of a Jay Driller attempt, but White hit an exploder over the top to the floor. Jay Lethal connected on a superplex, but White rolled out of a gonzo bomb by Brody King to tag in Claudio. And the two big guys went at it in a striking war. Now, at this point, the feed died. I don't know. It may have been different for people who are watching internationally. If you're watching on Fight or something, I'm watching on Bleacher Report, like most people have to do here. And the feed went out. I got a black screen. It started to flicker a whole bunch of times. And it was out for a good 60 seconds. Then it came back on. So the technical issues continue here for AEW. Usually it's audio issues, but lately they've been having a lot of blackouts too. And you can't blame this on the devil. I don't know why this keeps happening with these AEW shows. Doesn't matter. Pay-per-view, television, there's just these constant blackouts. I don't get it. And it may not be coming from their end. It may be coming from Bleacher Report, wherever it's coming from. It's like sometimes the issues on TV come from TNT or TBS. Maybe it's just bad luck. I don't see this happening with any other wrestling show. Are people watching Impact every week and getting blackouts? I watch Raw and SmackDown, NXT. I don't get blackouts. I don't get it. So when the feed came back, Claudio got Brody King in a giant swing. And he swung him around a few times into a low drop kick by Bryan Danielson, just the way Tyson Kidd used to do it. when Tyson Kidd was tagging with Cesaro back in the day. I do miss them as a team. Then it was Jay Lethal's time for some shine, and he got Garcia trapped in a figure four leg lock until Mark Briscoe came flying in with Froggy Bow to break it up. Everyone took turns hitting some big moves until Garcia was left in the ring with Brody King. He hit a stalling Saito suplex, took the big man over. Lethal tried to cut off Garcia, who pulled out the legs, and he got the roll up for the win. And the crowd popped big. They popped for the Daniel Garcia win here. And Brody King, meanwhile, went outside the ring. He was very upset. And Brody King went over and he wiped out Matt Menard, which we did not see. We could hear it. They didn't actually show it, though. But apparently he wiped him out. Just because I guess he annoyed him. He called him a bitch. So I guess he had it coming. Meanwhile, Lethal was on the other side of the ring getting a talking to by Sanjay Dutt. Because yet again, Jay Lethal is a loser. The only man who did not win a single match in the Continental Classic is the same man here in this match who takes the loss. And so he was getting a stern talking to, but then in the end, Sanjay put his arm around him, and the two of them left together. And, Lethal keeps on losing. Clearly, they're building up some dissension here. This is going to explode at some point. I don't know if the idea is to have him break away, and Jay Lethal's going to get a babyface. I say Jay Lethal might get a babyface run. What does that really mean? He'll get a babyface run on Rampage, right? It's not going to mean shit anyway. I thought this was a really fun opener, though. Wild finishing sequence. You know what this reminded me of? This felt like one of those G1 cards where you have that one, maybe it's the finals of the G1, where on the undercard, you get 8 guys from the tournament, you just put them together in an 8-man tag. You got some big names mixed in there, right? You could have Okada on one side, Naito on one side. On the other side, you got fucking Evil and whoever else. It's basically what this was. And I like that they gave the win to Garcia because he needed it more than anybody else in the match except Lethal. And to give it to Lethal, Lethal's not getting pushed. At least Garcia, the teases of him trying to impress the Blackpool Combat Club, there's something going on there. Lethal has nothing going on. So Garcia is the one who should have picked up the win in this match anyway. I'm glad they gave it to him. And if you noticed, at the end of the match, he was about to do his silly little dance that he does. Bryan Danielson eyeballed him. It was basically like, you better not do that. And so he backed off from doing it. Because he's trying to get him to be more serious. Maybe he's going to end up recruiting him eventually into the BCC. But the more times he teases doing the dance and then doesn't do it, the more the fans are going to want to see it. So I thought this was a hot opener for the show. Then we had Miro, one-on-one against Andrade El Idolo in what was very likely Andrade's final match in AEW. This is another news story that is breaking over the past 24 hours. And I know it could get lost in the noise because there's been so much news going on. So let me bring you up to speed. I believe it was Wrestle Purists who first reported this. And it's since been confirmed by other websites like Fightful and PW Insider. That Andrade is expected by many in AEW to finish up with the company tonight at World's End. Said he is also believed by many within AEW to be heading back to WWE. A WWE source that we spoke to is aware of the talks surrounding Andrade and is expecting him to join the company imminently. There was a separate story here from Fightful that was a little more dramatic as far as the separation between the two sides. Numerous sources indicated that Andrade made it clear this past Wednesday at Dynamite he no longer wanted to be with the company and he was planning on leaving. We are told the situation surrounding his exit was less than pleasant, with some even saying a major disagreement had unfolded. WWE sources had been told by those close to Andrade, Charlotte, excuse me, that his deal would not be up until at least the spring, but many we spoke to in AEW expected his deal to be up imminently. So there is some debate about exactly when he will be free. Some people think he might show up as soon as Raw this Monday night. Obviously, he wouldn't be able to do that, though, if he was under contract until the spring. So we don't have any confirmation yet on exactly when his deal is going to be up, but it sounds like he's gone. He's as good as gone. And look, there was a long period of time where AEW wasn't doing anything with Andrade. And when they launched Collision, he was basically part of the Collision roster. I don't know what the deal was before Collision with Andrade and why he wasn't hardly ever being featured. I don't know if there were creative disagreements between the two sides. Right? We heard that about Miro, where AEW was pitching creative to him, and supposedly he was turning it down and saying, nope, not interested. And so that's why we didn't see him. But then he would go on social media and people would ask him, where are you? How come they're not using you? And he would give these cryptic answers like, oh, you'd have to ask them. So I still to this day don't know what the fuck the whole Miro situation was. But they've had Andrade under contract for a long time. They really weren't doing much with him until Collision started. Then we started to see him. And in the Continental Classic, he had a lot of great matches, right? He was going out there and having these great, just banger after banger every single week, which is great. The problem is he can't cut promos by himself, right? I mean, he knows English, but his English isn't great. He's not a great promo guy if he has to cut promos in English. And so it made sense to put somebody with him. So they took CJ Perry and they put her with him as a mouthpiece, which at least, I don't know that she was the right person for the job, but at least they had somebody with him. It sounds to me like too little too late. He wasn't happy there. He wasn't happy with the way he was being featured or not being featured. And also, look, you can't discount the fact that he might just want to be closer to his wife. And his wife works for the other company. So for Miro, it's great. He now gets to work with his wife. Jon Moxley, his wife works for AEW as well, right? Johnny TV and Taya Valkyrie, Britt Baker and Adam Cole, Jack Perry and Anna Jay, all these people. Andrade works for one company, Charlotte works for the other, and they both have their own schedules. And maybe it just comes down to that, right? Yeah, he wasn't thrilled about being in AEW, but maybe circumstances were different. Single guy, maybe he wouldn't mind staying if they were going to pay him. Maybe he just wants to be closer to his wife. In which case, there isn't much Tony Khan can do about that, because Tony Khan can't sign Charlotte Flair. She's already been re-signed. So it looks like he's as good as gone. But he had CJ in his corner tonight. She was out of the hospital with cast on her middle finger. You don't know, she was hospitalized for several days last week. She actually had to have surgery. She had an infection. I think it came from a splinter that she got in her hand at work. And somehow she got an infection in her hand, in her finger, that went up her arm. And so she had to have surgery. It was pretty scary there for a while. And they sent her home, and so it was good to see her. I'm glad she's doing better. Sounded very scary when she was talking about what was going on. So she was back to work tonight. Miro attacked Andrade in the ring before he was even done taking off his jacket. And he beat him up for a bit. Then he looked down at CJ outside the ring and asked her, "Is this what you wanted?" And CJ yelled back at him and flashed her surgically repaired middle finger and asked him, "Is this what you want? My fucking finger? My infected finger?" Andrade started to make a comeback, but he got caught. And then he got spiked with a Uranagi slam. So they were fighting outside, over by the announce desk. And Miro got knocked backwards by Andrade. Andrade kind of like shoved him almost backwards. And Miro jumps up and takes this bump over the announce desk. And he took this hellacious bump on the floor, smacked the back of his head. I mean, he's grabbing the back of his head to make sure he's not bleeding, probably seeing stars. That was a rough bump. Back inside, Miro hit a superplex. Andrade then caught his leg in the ropes, hit a dragon screw. Miro, he got out of the way of a corner charge, but he rolled right into position for Andrade to hit a moonsault to the floor on him, took him down. Andrade went over, he hugged CJ, and Miro was able to avoid the first moonsault. Back in the ring, he does that thing Andrade does where he hits the moonsault. The guy rolls out of the way, but he lands on his feet. So he does it the second time, the standing moonsault, and he hits it. That's where Charlotte got it from. So he did that spot here with Miro. So Miro then makes a comeback and he calls for game over. And he locks on the submission. Andrade is reaching desperately for the bottom rope and he grabs a hold of it. CJ's outside. She's cheering for Andrade and Miro goes over and screams at her that she should be cheering for her husband. And I'm thinking, you know what? This guy's got a point. He's not wrong. Andrade gave Miro a dragon screw in the ropes and then blasted him with that spinning back elbow that he does. You know, I know these guys, they put a lot of trust in each other when they're in the ring together. I don't know how much trust I would have for someone at that velocity to take his elbow and just fucking blast me in the face with it. They put a lot of trust in each other when they're out there. I have respect for it. But it looks nasty when he hits that move. So he back elbows him, down goes Miro. Andrade covers, Miro barely kicks out before the 3. So Andrade applies a figure 4 leg lock, and then he bridges up into the figure 8. And that got a rise out of the crowd here at Nassau. Miro, though, quickly reverses the hold. Andrade, though, reverses it back, and again, he bridges up into the figure 8. And as the referee is over, he's occupied by Miro, and he's asking him, do you want to give up? Do you want to give up? CJ reaches into the ring, and she grabs each of Andrade's his hands and basically sweeps him out from under him and breaks the hold. So Andrade looks up at her with this shocked look on his face. He can't believe it. And when he stands up, he catches a Machka kick from Miro. And then he reapplies the game over, and this time Andrade taps out. Now, if this was Andrade's final AEW match, and it very likely was, I think it was a hell of a match for him to go out on. It was way more competitive than you would think for somebody who's on his way out of the company, most likely. It was a very competitive match. It went longer than I thought it would go. You know, he submitted at the end of the match, but it was hardly a burial. And even if you look at the way CJ interfered, it gave him an out. It protects him. It's almost as if he would have had the match won were it not for this woman getting involved. So the finish actually protected him in a way. CJ was smiling at Miro after the match and blowing him kisses. He still had a look on his face like he didn't know what to make of this. He wasn't expecting it. He didn't have a smile on his face. They didn't embrace. You know, they weren't tonguing each other and doing, sexual things to each other in the ring like they did in the tank, apparently, before WrestleMania 31. He just looked at her like, this woman is fucking crazy. I don't know what's going on with her. So I don't know if they're fully back together or if they're just going to pick up this storyline as she's going to represent somebody else because Andrade is leaving. I don't think they need to prolong this. Just put the two of them together. That's it. Just put the two of them together and give Miro a push. Very simple. As far as Andrade leaving, again, I talked about his run in the company and the matches he had in the Continental Classic. There is a report, as I'm sure most of you have seen, that a former WWE champion is being brought in for Raw Day 1. Triple H actually responded to this report, which he never does. When was the last time Triple H went on his Twitter and acknowledged a report from Fightful or PW Insider? So he went on Twitter and he alluded to the report. Didn't name Fightful or anything like that, but it's clear what he was referring to. But it's also very clear that, yes, there is something brewing there, and he wants to make sure people tune in at 8 p.m. on Monday night. It could very well be Andrade. You know, if we come to find out that he is a free man as of January 1st, he is a former United States champion. The report said a former WWE champion. That doesn't mean it has to be a WWE World Champion. It could be an Intercontinental Champion. It could be a Women's Champion. In the case of Andrade, he was a U.S. champion a few years ago. So who knows? Maybe he'll show up on Raw. We'll see. We had timeless Toni Storm against Riho for the AEW Women's World Championship. Tony Schiavone replaced Nigel McGuinness on commentary for this match. There was a spot early on where Riho dove off the apron. She got caught by Luther. And Luther very casually passed her along to Toni Storm, who then body slammed Riho on the floor. All 95 pounds of her. And Riho came up selling her back. So Toni exploited the back. We got a Toni chant that started from the crowd. And on commentary, Tony Schiavone said that he knew the fans loved him on Long Island. So there was another spot where, while sitting on Luther's shoulders, Toni Storm launched Riho from the apron to the floor. Riho was able to break the count back inside, and Toni sat back with a Texas cloverleaf. Luther pulled the ropes back when Riho was trying to grab for the ropes, and wouldn't you know, Rick Knox actually noticed. When was the last time that Rick Knox noticed anything? When was the last time this man did his job in a very competent way? He noticed this, and so he ejects Luther from the ringside area. And Toni Storm is beside herself. She can't believe it. Riho finally had the chance at this point in the match to make a comeback. She hit her 619. Storm rolled to the floor. Luther, though, this time was not there to save her ass, and so Riho came diving onto her outside the ring. Storm went to the apron. Riho met her with a diving double stomp before a dragon suplex back inside, connected for a 2 count. Riho missed the corner charge, but Toni whiffed on the sweet cheek music also and came right back immediately with a Storm Zero. Spiked Riho right on her head, covered her, but Riho somehow kicked out. Riho almost stole the pin with a roll-up. Took too long to go to the second rope, though. Toni pulled the legs out, and Toni hit an over-the-back DDT and got the win, which felt sudden. It just kind of felt like the finish came out of nowhere here. People weren't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it. Not that it's a bad thing to finish some matches. I felt like we had a lot of matches tonight like that. The finish in this match felt sudden. The finish in the Continental final felt sudden. And the finish in the main event shocked the hell out of pretty much everybody. So we had a lot of that up and down this card tonight. When the match was over, Mariah May came down to the ring with a bucket, and she showered Toni Storm with rose petals as Toni Storm celebrated her win. The crowd was firmly behind Toni Storm in this match, and I thought this was her best match since she adopted this gimmick. This was, I think, the best timeless Toni Storm match that she's had so far. Lexi Nair was backstage with Dante Martin. It's been 1 month, he said, since his return from that horrific injury that he suffered earlier this year. I honestly can't believe he's already back. I thought for sure he was going to miss the rest of the year. I'm stunned that this guy is even back and doing the things that he is doing in the ring. I only hope he shies away from doing something overly stupid like he did at the Ring of Honor show. He said he got the pin on Rampage last night, but more importantly, he almost got the pin on a champion. And at that point, Orange Cassidy walked into the camera frame and he told him, "You could try to take my international title from me on Dynamite on Wednesday." That was the setup for the match. So we're getting an international title match on Dynamite on Wednesday. Riveting stuff here, I know. Then we had what was supposed to be Swerve Strickland one-on-one with Keith Lee. A match literally 1 year in the making. And we didn't get it. Because earlier this afternoon, about 5 o'clock, Keith Lee went on Twitter and he posted the following message. He said, "Today, I keep it very real with you guys. I have been working through an injury since Arthur Ashe Stadium 2022. So that's September of last year. It has been mostly well taken care of. Things have been worse since Final Battle. I am trying to get through today for you guys, but I cannot promise anything." A little bit later on, Tony Khan went on Twitter and said, "Due to injury, AEW doctors cannot clear Keith Lee for his match tonight at World's End. His naturally limitless partner, Dustin Rhodes, has asked to step in to face Swerve tonight." So that is the first acknowledgement that Keith Lee has been dealing with an injury, which would explain how he has been booked over the past year and why they would book an angle a year ago on TV with Swerve breaking a cinder block over his chest. And it's a year later and we're first getting a match between these two. I made the comment on Wednesday. I said, unless it's an injury that he's been dealing with, I don't understand this booking. I don't understand why you wait a year to come back to a match now that's ice cold at a time when Swerve is above this. Swerve in the next few months should be wrestling for the AEW World Championship. You have him regressing and going backwards to a feud from a year ago. Doesn't make sense. Now it makes a little more sense because it was, in fact, an injury. I don't know the nature of the injury. The fact that Keith Lee was ready to work through it, I respect him for it, but that's troubling. That he felt like, well, I'm hurt and I'm not feeling too good, but I'm going to go out there and try. No! If you're hurt, stay out of the ring. I don't understand this. Obviously, it's a serious enough injury. It's affected his entire year. He's been dealing with this since Arthur Ashe. What is that, 15 months? Why is he even allowed in the ring? Let the man heal. Again, I respect the attitude. He feels like he wants to go out there. He owes us something. Keith Lee doesn't owe us anything as far as in the ring. If you're hurting, heal up. This man almost died from COVID. I don't know if this is related to that. He didn't say illness. He said injury. But he almost died from COVID. Now he's working through an injury for over a year. Why was he even booked in this match in the first place? So he wasn't medically cleared. Dustin Rhodes took his place. So again, this match is cursed. They should just leave this match alone and just move on. When he's ready to come back, just move on to something else. And maybe one day, when Swerve is the AEW World Champion, if you build Keith Lee back up enough, if he can stay healthy, maybe you come back to it. It could be a world title match one day. But it's very clear to me that this match is cursed. Just leave it alone. So Dustin comes down to the ring, and he's on the apron. And Swerve, who of course was super over with the fans here on Long Island, and they're doing his song, and they're swerving and everything else. Dustin gets drop kicked off the apron to the floor before the match even begins. Swerve goes to ringside. He runs Dustin into the ring post. He runs Dustin into the ring steps. Swerve hits Dustin with a running knee strike against the steps. And at that point, Prince Nana pulls out a cinder block. Same cinder block they used on Keith Lee. And he places it on, Dustin's leg on it. Swerve climbs up back into the ring on the apron, and he double stomps Dustin's ankle. And he shatters the cinder block in the process. Trainers come out, referees come out, they're tending to Dustin. It looks like this match is not going to happen. This is more angle than match, right? Swerve's in the ring, he's laughing, he's yucking it up. And he's selling the ankle like he can't put any weight on it. And finally, they get him up, he's limping, and they're helping him to the back. Swerve is still standing in the ring. Dustin turns around, he looks back, and Swerve is smiling, and he's motioning for Dustin to get back in the ring. And so Dustin, he comes back down to the ring. And he gets inside and he uses the ropes to pull himself back up to his feet. And the referee goes over to him and says, "Are you sure about this?" I love this, by the way. This AEW medical staff is unbelievable. So think back to last month at Full Gear, right? MJF is hurt. They have to take him out in an ambulance. Adam Cole is there. Now, Adam Cole shattered his ankle. The man is on crutches in a walking boot. And he says, "I'm going to wrestle Jay White for the AEW World title in my best friend's place." And Tony Khan okays the match in storyline. Evidently, he's fine with this. This AEW medical team is a menace. They have to be stopped. Poor Keith Lee apparently felt like he had to go out there and perform. It's just one thing after another with these people. Dustin Rhodes just had a cinder block broken over his ankle. And they're okay with letting him back in the ring because Dustin says, "I'm fine." I'm glad I don't work as a wrestler in this company. Jesus. So they ring the bell, and we got ourselves a match. Strickland immediately hit a pump kick, and he starts mocking Keith Lee and saying, "This could have been you." Dustin fought off Swerve in the corner. He managed to get a crossbody for 2. And he kept mounting a comeback, and he hit a Canadian Destroyer, hit a power slam for another near fall. There was a pile driver by Dustin that led to a crossroads, which got him 2. Strickland kicked away from a figure 4 and hit the rolling flatliner that we see him use. Sank in a single leg crab, and then he transitioned into a stretch muffler. Dustin got the ropes. Swerve was toying with him a little too much, and Dustin was able to hype himself up. He looked up at him, he spat at him, he flipped him off. Swerve hit multiple house call kicks, and the fans were so concerned These fans were so worried about Dustin Rhodes that they chanted one more time. They wanted Swerve to kick this man in the head again. And like a good heel, instead of giving the people what they wanted, instead he took Dustin's arm and he snapped the arm instead. And then he went up top and he hit the Swerve stomp and finally picked up the win. This dragged on a lot longer than it had any business going on for. You know, I think it went about 9 or 10 minutes, which may not sound like a lot, but it was a lot. You know, for a guy who just had his ankle crushed by a cinder block, there was no reason for this match to drag on the way that it did. And I know Dustin, his time in the ring is coming to an end very soon. I thought he said this was going to be his last year. I guess not. So I get that. And it didn't have to be a total squash. You want to give him some hope spots, let him try to fight back. But to go 9 or 10 minutes, this was completely unnecessary. Look, it's unfortunate. Again, what happened with Keith Lee, I hope whatever the injury is, we don't know. I don't know if Tony Khan maybe said anything about it at the scrum tonight. I don't know if Tony Khan said anything at the press scrum tonight. I'm not even sure he wants to have a press scrum. I'm sure he is in the middle of one right now. Whatever the nature of the injury is, I hope it's not so serious that it's not something he can't get over soon. Best wishes to him. But again, as a fan, I look at that when I hear him say stuff like that, or any wrestler. You know, I'm hurt. I'm really in pain, but I'm going to try to work through it. You know, it's one of the things that I actually like about WWE and the program they have now, because it never used to be like that. Right? Guys would just tape shit up or take pills or whatever, and they would go to the ring and they would work hurt, right? That's just what wrestlers do. And there's all kinds of reasons for it. It's, you know, macho bullshit, too much pride. Back in the day, you didn't work, you didn't get paid. At least that I can understand. Today, with guaranteed contracts and everything, you don't have to worry about it. Go back 30, 40 years, you didn't work, you didn't get paid. So I kind of get it. But it's just stupid. And you're telling me you've been dealing with an injury for over a year? Maybe he's dealing with an injury for over a year because he keeps working. Just let the man heal. Even if he wants to work, there has to be somebody there who says, you know what? I'm going to make the final call here. Better off you stay home and get well, and then we'll get you back. That's all I want. Because Keith Lee, I mean, the longer that drags on for, it's like he's wasting valuable time in his career if he's dealing with the same injury. But again, I don't know what the nature of the injury is. I just hope he gets better. That's all I hope. Then we got to a very interesting match. We got to an 8-man tag team match that was just added on television on Wednesday. Sting, Darby Allin, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara against Ricky Starks, Big Bill, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Konosuke Takeshita. Jericho was out first. Half the crowd was singing his song. Half the crowd was booing him. When the song was over, the boos rained down on Chris Jericho, and he had a smirk on his face. This was also Sting's final match in New York. His last match ever in the state of New York, put together 3 days before the show. If the circumstances were different, I would call AEW and Tony Khan out on it, because it's ridiculous that for this to be his final match in New York, you make the match on 3 days' notice and don't even promote it. But given the circumstances here, I don't blame them for it. I'm not even sure Sting was going to be on the show. They had a tag team title match set. It was going to be Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega against Ricky Starks and Big Bill. Kenny Omega went down with diverticulitis. We don't know when he's going to be back. Tony Khan, he should be used to this by now. How many times has Tony Khan's plans, because of injury or controversy, gone up in smoke? He had to pivot and come up with a backup plan. This is the backup plan that he came up with. And I assume that's the only reason why Sting got added to this show and there was no promotion for his final match in New York. So I'll cut them some slack for that. But Takeshita was not supposed to be in this match originally. Konosuke Takeshita he had nothing announced. I thought maybe he'd be in the Battle Royal. It was going to be Kyle Fletcher with Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, and Big Bill. That's what they announced on Wednesday. For whatever reason, they changed their mind, and they replaced Kyle Fletcher instead with Takeshita. When Jericho first tagged into the match, he got booed. There were light chants for Kylie Ray. Later on, there were chants of NDA. Every time one of the heels got offense on him, they got cheered. Darby, of course, so it's Darby Allin. So, of course, he took some wacky bumps, including Takeshita gave him this wild avalanche spinning blue thunderball. It looked great. It looked like it sucked to take. I would never take that move. But it looked great. And Darby, of course, goes flying through the air, takes this wicked bump. Then Hobbs and Big Bill, they each grab Darby's arms, and they're swinging him back and forth. Remember when the Spirit Squad many years ago, all of them, how many of them were there? 5 of them, 6 of them? They took Shawn Michaels, and they flung him up into the air. I'm surprised they didn't do that with Darby. Instead, they rocked him back and forth, and then they just launched him across the ring into the turnbuckles. There's no bump that this guy will not agree to take. So Darby finally dives for a hot tag to Sting. People were chanting for Sting. We want Sting. So they finally got Sting, and they popped huge when he tagged into the match. There were a series of Stinger splashes. There were dueling splashes by Sting and Jericho. Jericho wanted to get in on it with Sting. Of course, they booed him, but they cheered Sting. And Ricky Starks then got involved here. He was lighting up Sting in the corner. Then he did the rope walk that he does and came down with the clubbing blow. Sting tried a hot shot, but he missed the ropes. Fell a little short. Poor Ricky crashed to the mat instead. Big Bill hit this massive boss man slam on Sammy Guevara. Jericho flew in with a code breaker, which got boos. And then when Big Bill no-sold the code breaker. And something got botched here. It looked like they were not on the same page. They tried something, it didn't work. Bill looked lost, like he didn't know what to do. So he just got down, he mounted Jericho, started just wailing away, just started wailing away on him. And everybody cheered. So we got a World's Strongest Slam by Powerhouse Hobbs to Jericho. He went for a second one, but Darby flew in with a coffin splash and then a scorpion death drop. Here comes Takeshita in. He dropped Darby right on his head, and then he delivered a double German to Guevara and to Darby. Takeshita tried a jumping knee strike on Sting, who ate the first one, but he blocked the second one, and then he applied a scorpion deathlock. Don Callis got in the ring with a baseball bat. Sting saw him, so he chased him out of the ring. Jericho applied the walls of Jericho on Hobbs. Sting put the deathlock back on Takeshita, so we had dueling submissions here. Ricky Starks broke it up. Sting wanted a death drop on Starks. Big Bill came in with a big boot, and Darby made the save. He sent Bill to the floor, and he followed that with a suicide dive. Sammy Guevara wanted a dive. He took too long, and Ricky cut him in half with a spear. Got a 2 count out of it. Ricky wanted the Rochambeau. Guevara escaped with a super kick and then the GTH. And Sammy followed up with a shooting star press, and he pinned Ricky Starks to win the match for the babyfaces. Whatever that opening 8-man tag was that I talked about that I liked a lot, thought it was a hot opener, that's not what this was. Whatever that was, this was not. And the Jericho stuff didn't help. Even without the Jericho stuff, something was off with this match. And it didn't have the kind of heat that you would expect. I mean, people were happy to see Sting. That's really what they wanted to see. They like Darby, and they obviously love Sting. Sammy, it sounded like they were kind of indifferent to. Jericho, they mostly didn't like. It just wasn't that good of a match. And it was, I thought, kind of boring for most of the match. And it was pretty surprising when you consider some of the names that were involved here. It just didn't work. Now, Jericho and Sammy are in line for a shot at the tag team titles. That's already been announced. Tony Khan might want to change those plans now. I don't know that he's going to, but this stink is going to follow Jericho around wherever he goes. So they're in line for a tag team title match. He needs to be prepared for the reactions that are going to follow. And frankly, more than crowd reactions, there's other aspects to this where he might want to change his plans. For now, though, Jericho and Sammy are next in line, and so it made sense in that regard for Sammy to get the pin on Ricky, to set things up there as far as that goes. The babyfaces winning was predictable because I told you the other night, Sting can't lose. He can't lose. He's undefeated. His entire run in AEW, he has yet to be beaten. I don't think he's going to lose in his last match at Revolution either. But if he was ever going to lose, he would lose in his final match. He would do the honors on the way out. He's not losing on the penultimate pay-per-view before his retirement. It's not going to happen. So as soon as they added Sting to the match, it made the outcome predictable because there was no way the babyfaces could lose. After the match was over, they played Sting's music. He went around the ring, and he was slapping hands with all the fans. And then he went over, behind the announcers, was Vladimir. Vladimir was at the Nassau Coliseum tonight. Sting went over to shake his hand and say hello. He was right there with his friend Charlie. So that was wholesome. If you have not seen the Vladimir Superfan documentary, it's up on Peacock. It's only, I think it's like 37 minutes. Do yourself a favor, make sure you watch it. Interesting story about Vladimir, and Mike Johnson mentioned this. Apparently Charlie called up Vlad earlier today and said, hey, what are you doing? Let's go hang out. Didn't tell Vlad anything else. Picked him up, basically kidnapped the guy, and took him to the Nassau Coliseum. So Vlad had no idea he was going to the show tonight until he got there, and then he was sitting in the front row. So that was very cool. We all need a friend like Charlie. That's what we need. Julia Hart against Abadon for the TBS Championship. This was contested under house rules, which meant that the opponent, in this case Abadon, would get to pick a stipulation for this match. Do you know the stipulation that Abadon chose? Biting is legal. So biting was legal in this match. Okay. Fans chanted, "This is spooky." We got a boss man slam that got Abadon a 2 count before they both started trading strikes. Julia spun out of a spinning side slam into a crucifix for 2. And both slowly crawled around into a face-off. They were pie-facing each other. Julia got a leg sweep and poured down right hands, and she sent Abadon to the floor several times. Abadon made a comeback, hit a lung blower for 2, and Abadon was cut off in the ropes. Julia connected on a superplex for a near fall of her own. Julia had Heartless applied, and Abadon was able to fight their way out of the submission, hit a swinging side slam, followed by a running knee strike. And Hart again cut Abadon off in the ropes. Abadon, though, bit Julia on the head, because biting is legal. And then Julia took the referee. Sky Blue appeared out from under the ring, and Sky Blue shoved Abadon off the ropes and then went back under the ring. Abadon went out after her and pulled her out from under the ring, dropped her with a right hand and then a knee strike. Julia decked Abadon from behind and slammed Abadon into the ring steps before going back in the ring. And then Julia went up top for her moonsault. I've commented. I think I commented on this when she won the title at Full Gear. Julia Hart actually has a beautiful moonsault. Right? She hits it. It looks great. Tonight was not one of those nights. Julia Hart went to the top. She hit the Charlotte Flair moonsault, where she landed on her feet. She stuck the landing, but didn't go back up and hit it again or anything like that. It's like, well, this is the finish, and so we got to go for the pin. So even though she technically, and the announcers tried to cover for it by going, oh, I think Julia, she landed with her knees on Abadon. No, not really. She landed on her feet and then basically just splashed her, and then pinned her, and then pinned Abadon and retained the TBS Championship. So it looked like crap, but again, Julia covered Abadon anyway and got the pin to retain the title. Outside of the spooky chants, the crowd just died for this because, they worked 2 things. They worked a slow, methodical pace, and that's fine if there are other interesting aspects to the match or the story they're trying to tell, or if people are super invested in the participants in the ring. The crowd was clearly not invested in Abadon. Abadon didn't exactly get a huge push in the lead up to this. They gave her a little push to get her in contention, but nobody took Abadon seriously, as a credible challenger for the TBS title. That, and it may be a combination also of the gimmick. It, just doesn't work for them. Whatever it was, they were dead for this match, and the match was already worked at a slow pace, and so it was boring. And it didn't help that, unfortunately, Julia didn't exactly hit the best moonsault I've seen her hit. So, just one of those nights, even right down to the finish, it just didn't work. Then things started to get really good. We had Adam Copeland one-on-one with Christian Cage, no disqualification for the TNT Championship with Nick Wayne and Mother Wayne. I love that. Mother Wayne in Christian's corner. Copeland was wearing the same gear that he wore for his hardcore match with Mick Foley at WrestleMania 22. He had the black camo pants. So I thought that was very cool. Copeland attacked Christian on the ramp during his entrance and sent him tumbling down to the ringside area. So Cage escaped through the crowd. Copeland followed him all the way up the steps onto the concourse, whatever level that was at the Coliseum. I haven't been to the Coliseum in many years, so whatever section it was that they were in. And Nick Wayne showed up there and attacked Copeland. He got beat up. Copeland then disappeared. So Christian and Nick Wayne are standing together. They're kind of licking their wounds. Now we see Copeland. He went up one level, and he's on the ledge of the upper section. He thinks he's Sting. And the only thing I could see, because you saw his mouth, and I know he mouthed the word motherfucker. So I don't know what exactly he said other than motherfucker. And he dove off, and he took out Christian and Nick Wayne. So everybody was chanting, holy shit. They went back down to ringside. Copeland, he walked the barricade and then hit a diving clothesline. Back in the ring, he did the 10 corner punches. Christian, after that, sidestepped a spear, and Copeland went shoulder first into the ring post. Outside the ring, Cage planted Copeland face down on top of the ring steps and then stomped on his head. And that busted him open in the process. I don't know if I didn't see if he, cut himself or not. It looked like he had a nice lump on the side of his eye. So it may have been hard way, I don't know, but he started bleeding from the side of his head. Cage decked Copeland with some kendo stick shots. Nick Wayne threw multiple chairs into the ring. And with a chair set up on Copeland's neck, Cage locked in a Boston Crab sitting on the chair. Copeland escaped. Wayne handed Cage a metal rod, and he swung for the fences. Copeland, though, ducked, and he took Christian down. Copeland got his revenge with a couple of kendo stick shots of his own before applying a crossface. Christian almost got the metal rod, but Copeland wrestled it away from him and choked him with it. Copeland let go of the hold. He opted for a ladder from underneath the ring, which got, of course, a big pop from the crowd. There were people in the crowd chanting TLC at one point. So he set the ladder up in the corner, and Copeland hit a slingshot where he basically delivered a slingshot, and Christian went face first up into the ladder. But then he took too long to follow up, and Christian hit a kendo stick shot low, and then a reverse DDT. So Cage climbed the ladder, but he also took too long. Copeland cut him off, and he tried for a superplex off the ladder. Christian countered into a sunset flip powerbomb, and I always cringe on this move because the first thing I think of is Seth Rollins in that match with Kane or whatever house show it was, destroying his knee in 2015. He was in the middle of this run, right, as the champion, and it was actually not even off a ladder. It was just off the ropes. He did a sunset bomb, and that's where he blew out his knee. And that was Seth Rollins, who was arguably at that point, he was in his physical prime. This is Christian with a pair of 50-year-old knees doing the same move from the top of a ladder. So I held my breath every time they come down, the impact, but he was okay. But that's the first thing I think of every time I see that move. Copeland, on the other hand, he smacked the back of his head on the mat. So him, I'm not too sure of. I'm not so sure he came out of that all that well, but thankfully Christian was okay. So Cage decided to go get the tables, and Nick Wayne helped set them up outside. The fans were chanting for fire. This was a bloodthirsty crowd here on Long Island. Cage wanted a suplex to the floor. Copeland escaped and tried a spear. Wayne, though, made the save. Copeland hit an impaler on the chair back in the ring and wanted a concerto, but Nick Wayne made the save, and that allowed Christian to get a low blow. Now, with a table set up in the corner, Copeland, he leapfrogged a spear attempt, and then he launched a chair at Christian's head, and then he did it again. Then he backed up into the corner, he came charging in, and he speared Christian through the table, and the table snapped in half. Looked great. Now we have Mother Wayne, who pulls the referee to the floor. Copeland went after her as Nick blasted Copeland with the TNT title and hit Wayne's World on the floor. Copeland got sent back into the ring. Cage hit a kill switch, only got 2. Now Christian and Nick go outside the ring, and underneath the steps is this pile of just lighters and lighter fluid. And they douse the table outside the ring. This was basically what they were trying to do. We should have known when Copeland came out dressed in his gear from WrestleMania 22. What they were trying to do here was recreate the spot from WrestleMania, the fire spot, right? Where Foley got speared through the ropes, through the table, the fire. We remember all that. So they were going to try to recreate it. But there was a problem because they doused the table with a lot of lighter fluid, but then Nick Wayne went with the barbecue lighter and he set fire to the table. The only thing is, as they explained on commentary, the flames don't, the table does not stay lit for very long. The flames will be extinguished relatively quickly if you just leave it. And Christian was not ready to do the spot yet. Because Christian first went back in the ring. Copeland was on the opposite end of the ring. He went over to Copeland. He told him to go fuck himself. By the time they got back, the flames were out. The flames that Nick Wayne had set were already extinguished. And so when he tried to throw him out of the ring, Copeland dodged it, and then he fought off Nick. Copeland had to reignite the table himself. So he doused it with some more lighter fluid. He took the barbecue lighter. Table went up in flames. He immediately grabbed Nick Wayne in a powerbomb position. He was on the apron. And very quickly powerbombed. Now the spot, I assume, was that he was going to powerbomb him through the flaming table. He did it so quickly, he overshot the table, and Nick Wayne clipped the edge of the table. He may have gotten a little bit of the flame on him, but he clipped the edge of the table flipped over onto its side. The flames immediately were out. And so they botched the spot. Not that it didn't look, okay. It looked okay, but that clearly was not what they were trying to do. And look, I don't want to see Nick Wayne burnt to a crisp. So, he looked like he was fine. But that obviously was not what they were going for. So, unfortunately for them, the powerbomb got botched. 2 things that do not cooperate in wrestling and are always dangerous in wrestling: glass and fire. They're very unpredictable. So although in this case it was very predictable that the flames would go out as quickly as they did. Back in the ring, Copeland avoided the belt shot by Cage. He hit a low blow, and he hit Christian's own kill switch on him to get the pin and to win the TNT Championship. His first championship since he retired in 2011. Believe it or not. Copeland is in the ring. He's celebrating with the title when, predictably, Kill Switch, the dinosaur, not the finishing move, appears from behind him. And he levels Copeland from behind with a clothesline. And then he hits a choke slam. And then he hits one more choke slam. And this time he hit a choke slam through a chair that was sitting in the ring. So now he's going to give his TNT title contract that he won earlier in the night in the Battle Royal. He's going to give it to the referee. Christian comes back over. And he's telling him, give me the contract. So now Killswitch is having this crisis of conscience here. He doesn't know what to do. He's having doubts, right? He doesn't want to do it. Christian then goes over to him. He whispers something in his ear. And finally, Killswitch, after some hesitation, gives the contract to Christian Cage, and he exits the ring. Christian opens it up. He signs his name. He hands it over to the referee. And Paul Turner says, well, we have a match. They ring the bell. Cage hits a spear when Copeland gets up to his feet, and he pins him to regain the TNT Championship. I saw people who absolutely hated that finish. I loved it. I actually loved that finish because it is just so properly dickish for Christian Cage to pull something like that it just fits him to a T. That, and also I'm just happy that we get Christian with the TNT title for a little bit longer because I just love what he's doing. He's one of my favorite acts in the entire show. So him keeping the title for a little while longer is fine with me. And the way he went about getting the belt back is perfect, right? Because he's a dick. He's a prick. And that's exactly the sort of thing you would expect him to do. And so now Copeland has the distinction of being the shortest ever reigning TNT champion in the history of the company. The match itself, though, the main match was a war between these two. The crowd also loved it. You never know what you're going to get when it comes to the Nassau Coliseum. You know, I've been in that building before, and I've seen plenty of Raws and wrestling shows from the Nassau Coliseum. And a lot of times it's very difficult to get the crowd up. They tend to be a crowd that can be very quiet and sometimes can sit on their hands. They kind of had a reputation for that. That was the case with some of the matches tonight, but not this one. They were into this match. They looked like they were enjoying themselves. This show at this point really needed a match like this. I think to get the crowd, to wake the crowd up and just really get them on their feet and get them invested in something. And I think that this match succeeded. It was exactly at the right time of the show where they needed a match like this to take place. And also Copeland, he needed a match like that. We've seen Christian have tons of great matches in this company. We've seen Christian have great matches against Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson. And did he wrestle Punk? I thought he wrestled CM Punk. Darby Allin, right? He's had tons of great matches in AEW. Copeland has only been there for 2 months, right? Actually 3, going on 3 months. Not a very long time. He had yet before tonight to have that great AEW match. Now he can say that he's had that great AEW match. And he got to do it against his best friend. That's the whole reason he came to the company in the first place. He wanted to work with Christian, his best friend of 40 years. So they got to go out there tonight, and they had one of the best matches of the entire show. Frankly, they had, I think, the best match of the entire show. It's not even one of. The match of the night was Copeland and Christian. They stole the show tonight. So now the question is, what next? Copeland is seemingly going to have to do one of two things. Either he's going to have to recruit some help against the patriarchy, or I could see maybe a story where he joins with them. It's kind of like if you can't beat him, join him. Only he's trying to destroy them from within, right? Maybe that's the story they go with, where he joins them, but he doesn't really join them. But maybe there for a while we get Edge and Christian even doing some tag team matches together, even if it's as heels. Obviously, the longer term play here is eventually when Christian does go babyface again. And it would be a sin to turn him babyface anytime soon because he's just so good as a heel. Clearly, at some point, though, we will get Edge and Christian as a babyface tag team. And I think they'll even win the AEW tag team titles. I think that Tony Khan will want to do with them what he wanted to do originally with the Hardys before Jeff Hardy fucked up. Jeff Hardy was not even under contract for 3 full months before he fucked up. And at that point, Tony Khan, he would have been well within his rights to get rid of Jeff Hardy. And he didn't do that, but clearly he's gun shy to do anything with them. I know Matt Hardy has complained about, well, there's a story with the Hardys and everything, and I wish he was doing more with us. Yeah, well, there's a reason why he doesn't. But with Edge and Christian, that I think is a story that we will get to see at some point. I think they will win those tag team titles. Then we had Jon Moxley against Eddie Kingston in the finals of the Continental Classic. Now they have a brand new championship. It is a Continental title because the whole premise of this thing is Eddie Kingston threw in his Ring of Honor World title and his New Japan Strong Openweight Championship. And then they created this new Continental title and they call it the Triple Crown. It's a modern day American Triple Crown akin to what All Japan did back in the 90s. But for weeks on television, they would have the belt on a stand and it was covered and we didn't know what it looked like. Well, here's a graphic So it's not a photo of the actual belt, but it's pretty much what the belt looks like. They threw this up on the screen just before the match. That is the AEW Continental title. See the crown right in the middle there with the globe side plates. I think it looks fine. Again, did this company need more championships? No. No, they do not. But as titles go, I think it looks fine. Not my favorite, not my least favorite. But this entire tournament has been the Eddie Kingston story. So there was really only one way for this to end. Bryan Danielson sat in on commentary for the match. Kingston was wearing Kawada-inspired kick pads, since Kawada is one of his idols. We got a grappling exchange with him and Moxley to kick things off here. I was really looking forward to this match because if you saw the promo segment with them where Moxley cut a promo on Kingston, Kingston had a chance to respond on Wednesday. It was fantastic. And in one promo segment, they sold me on this being the finals of the tournament. So I was looking forward to this coming into it. Kingston fired off chops to the neck, and an enziguri sent Moxley to the floor. And then we had a very scary spot because Eddie Kingston went airborne. He went flying through the ropes for a suicide dive, and he hit. I don't even know how he managed to do this, but with his head and his shoulder, he managed to hit the floor and the LED barricade both. I mean, he slammed into it. It was very scary. And the referee went over to check on him and make sure that he was alive. And he waved off the referee and shook it off. Back inside, though, he was met with a German suplex from Moxley. To the floor again. This time Moxley hit a paradigm shift before waiting for Kingston to try to beat the count. And Bryan Danielson on commentary. This actually made me laugh out loud. Just out of nowhere. About Eddie Kingston, Bryan Danielson just goes, I can't believe I lost to this guy. Just the way he said it. So back inside, Kingston tried to chop, which Moxley blocked. And they showed the slow-mo replay of it when he put his arm up to block it. The way that Eddie chopped his forearm. Obviously, he hit him pretty hard. I know he was bleeding from the forearm after that. Moxley connected with a pile driver before sinking in an STF, which Kingston bit his way out of. I thought this was the Abadon match again. Both men traded chops, and Kingston's was so loud it brought Moxley to his knees. Kingston hit an exploder, which Moxley popped right up from, but stumbled into a spinning back fist, only to have Eddie then crumble to the mat as well. So both men were down. Both men raised back up to their feet. Kingston unleashed the machine gun chops until a DDT followed. But he took too long to capitalize, and Moxley hit a cutter and then a King Kong lariat. Moxley went for Death Rider. Kingston countered into a Northern Lights bomb for 2. Transitioned into a Bulldog choke, which Moxley escaped out of into one of his own. Kingston got the ropes, and he was able to hit another Northern Lights bomb for 2. And Eddie wanted the power bomb. Right, we've seen him win matches with the powerbomb stacked before. But Moxley exploded out with a lariat for the double down. Moxley hit the lariat so hard that he was clutching his own bicep. And Taz then on commentary, he's very good at his job. Taz on commentary shared a story about how he once broke Sabu's jaw, and he also tore his own bicep when he threw a clothesline. So that must have been a hell of a clothesline. To tear your bicep and break the other guy's jaw. I guess that's just the way things were done in ECW back then. But then again, with Sabu, I mean, this is a guy who told Fonzie in the middle of a match when he ripped open his arm, I think it was his bicep, to go get some crazy glue, right? He crazy glued the wound shut. Can't imagine why Sabu is in the state that he's in today. So we got a headbutt exchange from their knees. Moxley won that. And Moxley then started a slap battle, which Kingston answered by firing off a wild back fist that crumbled Moxley to the mat. And Kingston got the pin. Just like that. Came out of nowhere. But that's kind of how they worked it. I think they worked it like that intentionally just to show you that these two men were so evenly matched that it was going to come down to a move like that out of nowhere. It wasn't going to be a regular Death Rider finish or, the power bomb that we've seen him, Kingston beat people with before. So it came out of nowhere. Again, I'm sure that was designed that way to come off sudden. Bryce Remsburg presented the Triple Crown to Kingston, who held the Ring of Honor World title up, the New Japan Strong Openweight title up, and the brand new, I'll put it up again, Continental title. And he held up, he had 2 belts on his shoulder, held up the Continental title, looked up to the heavens. Moxley got up, he hugged Kingston after the match was over, and he left through the crowd. And he left the ring to his good friend. So a very good match. This wasn't even the best match in the tournament. We got matches on television for free every single week that were even better than this. But this was still very good. It was a hard-hitting match. It had the correct payoff. A lot is going to be said about the Continental Classic now. There's going to be a post-mortem on this tournament. This is the first of many. They're going to make this an annual thing. They already said that they're going to bring it back again next year. And a lot of people were shitting all over this tournament. A lot of people were very hung up on ratings for this tournament. When I watched the tournament, I was treated to a lot of really great fucking professional wrestling. And contrary to popular belief, there were stories that were weaved into this tournament. It's not as if they didn't tell you coming into it what this was going to be. They told you, basically, this was going to be their version of the G1 climax. These same people would say that about the G1. Oh, it's just matches. There's no story. Those are people who don't pay attention. Or maybe the stories are just, they just kind of fly over their head. But there were different stories going on in this tournament. Eddie Kingston, the comeback kid, on the brink of elimination. He's the guy who put both of his belts up in this tournament. Now it's gut check time. He's got to win or he goes home. So he had to make it all the way back from the brink of elimination, made it to the finals, and won. That's his story. Daniel Garcia had his story. He only got 1 win in the entire tournament, but it was a win against the biggest guy in the entire thing. And then he has his own little story going on where it looks like he's trying to impress Bryan Danielson in the BCC. Even down to the very bottom with Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe was like Jay Lethal. He couldn't get a win to save his life. He was having great matches every week, but he kept losing. So finally he won. Not much of a story, but even him, right? They built it up like, wow, he finally got points. And there were other little stories in there as well. Brody King was he had kind of a breakout performance for himself in the tournament. Now, is it going to matter? Is Brody King going to get a singles push coming out of this? These are the things I'm going to be watching for now. Where does this Daniel Garcia thing go? Andrade, he's pretty much gone. Is Brody King going to get any kind of a push now? Right? Or is he just going to be relegated back to the House of Black and just doing trios matches? These are the things that I will wait to find out. But as far as the Triple Crown goes, I know it meant a lot to Eddie Kingston, I'm sure, to be the first person to win it. It doesn't mean anything to me. For AEW now, it's up to them. How do they book this thing? Ring of Honor has no world champion right now, technically. The Triple Crown is the Ring of Honor world title. How are they going to rectify that? I'll be honest with you. I don't really care much about Ring of Honor. So to me, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But there are questions that have to be answered now coming out of this tournament. It's going to be up to them to make this thing special in some way. If they want this to be some big sought-after thing every single year. To me, right now, it's just another belt in a company filled with belts. And the more belts you add, the less they mean. Because if everybody gets a belt, who cares? Who cares? So, we got to the main event, which was Samoa Joe challenging for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship against the hometown boy from Long Island, New York, MJF, wrestling in the Nassau Coliseum in the main event for the very first time. We got a video package. After Joe made his entrance, they played a video before MJF came out. And in the video, they had a handful, maybe 4 or 5 people from Long Island, I could tell because of their accents, talking about MJF. I'm almost positive that one of them, there was one guy in this video who was standing outside in a park. I'm almost positive that that was the war memorial that they have there at Eisenhower Park. Eisenhower Park is basically right next to the Nassau Coliseum. I should know because I went to college right there. My college is right next to the Nassau Coliseum. And I know this because I walked to a couple of different WWE shows from my school dorm one time with a 104-degree fever, which was not very smart, but it was the night that Stone Cold was back on Raw when he came back in 2003. And he had a little face-to-face with The Rock at the end of the show. This was to build up their match at WrestleMania 19. I was not going to miss that show. So I dragged myself down Hempstead Turnpike. Now it's all nice. Now they have like a walking path there and everything. Back then they didn't have shit. I'm basically walking on the side of the highway. And then walking into the Nassau Coliseum. And Bubba Ray Dudley came through the crowd. He body checked me. It was a fun night. And then I ended up at death's door for the next week. But I'm almost positive that was Eisenhower Park. Anyway, they're talking about how people are saying MJF lost his fastball. And he became friendly and weak. There was a woman who said that she and MJF once fucked in the back of her parents' car. And they kept censoring her over and over again. So anyway, he comes out, big pop, as you would expect. But then he looks to the aisleway, and Adam Cole's music hits. So Adam Cole was not advertised for this show, but here comes Adam Cole. Big pop for Adam Cole. And you know how I knew? Not just the fact that he was there. Just by his mere presence, I said, angle alert, something is going down tonight. Because I said there has to be some kind of a development or a reveal with this devil story. You can't go off the air tonight without having some kind of reveal here. So as soon as I saw Cole, I knew. But you know what really was the tip-off for me? He shaved and slicked back his hair. Every other time we've seen him on television, he was growing out the beard. You know, his hair was up in a fucking bun. You know, because he was hurt. He wasn't working, and he didn't give a shit. This time, though, he shaved. He slicked back the hair. I said, something's going down. So he's on crutches. He comes down to the ring. MJF had his left shoulder wrapped up, and his arm was in a brace, basically. That was the arm with the torn labrum. Joe flattened him early in the corner with the Uranagi slam. Loud chants of, fuck you, Joe. Joe tried for an early muscle buster, but MJF countered out of it and pulled the rope down. Joe went flying out of the ring. But MJF couldn't follow up. There was no... He didn't come out after him. There was no dive or anything like that. So Joe just got right back in the ring. We got some quick schoolboy attempts by MJF that were unsuccessful. MJF tried for a kangaroo kick. You know, I do have to say this. The kangaroo kick at Wembley was very much over, right? Crowd popped huge for it. And even after Wembley for a while, the kangaroo kick thing was super over. So you could kind of excuse it and say, well, the people are demanding it, and the people pop huge for it, so just give them what they want. Now, when I see him doing the kangaroo kick, when he goes like this, right? He looks like a fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's December. That was August. And you were overseas, and it made sense, okay? But now it's December. You're on Long Island, and you're doing this. There's no kangaroos on Long Island. I've seen possums. I've seen all kinds of birds and butterflies and other vermin. I've never, in all the years I've been on Long Island, when I went to school there, when I visit there, I've never hit a kangaroo on my way to someone's house. I've never seen a kangaroo out in the park somewhere. Leave the kangaroo kick alone. It's just ridiculous. So when people say that MJF, as the babyface, he's soft and he sucks compared to MJF as a heel, the first thing I think of is that stupid kangaroo kick. He's got to let that die. He's going to take time off and come back in a few months. The kangaroo kick needs to be a thing of the past. He wants to bring it back out for Wembley next year, that's fine. Leave the kangaroo. Nothing makes him less cool than that stupid kangaroo kick. So anyway, he went for a kangaroo kick, and Joe caught the legs and slingshotted him over the top rope. MJF, he tried to skin the cat back into the ring, but he shrieked because the arm. So he couldn't do it. He tried, but he only skinned half the cat, and Joe came in and booted him right in the face, and MJF fell to the floor. I have to look harder. No, I'm telling you, there's no kangaroos on Long Island. I believe me, I've looked. There's no kangaroos on Long Island. There's no kangaroos anywhere here in New York. I have nothing against kangaroos and their pouches, but it's ridiculous. So he got booted to the floor. Joe followed that with an elbow suicida to the floor and then put the champion back inside. So Joe hit a dragon suplex and then a release straitjacket German. MJF was only saved by the bottom rope. Joe took him out to the apron, and Joe delivered a muscle buster on the apron. On the injured left shoulder, no less. Okay, a muscle buster on the apron, on the injured shoulder, on the torn labrum. And they cut to a shot of Adam Cole outside the ring who saw this. He had a look on his face like he saw a ghost or a kangaroo. And he covers MJF, and MJF kicks out. So MJF, with one bad arm, gets dropped on that arm on the apron with a muscle buster, Joe's finish, and he kicks out. He really is Super Cena. MJF made a one-armed comeback and rammed Joe face first into the top turnbuckle 10 times. Then he set up for the stupid kangaroo kick again with this. But then he came charging in. Joe booted him in the chest. You would think he would have learned his lesson the first time when it didn't work. So he tried it a second time, and again, it did not work. Didn't work. So he gets booted in the chest. MJF came back and got Joe on his shoulders, though, and then he collapsed. With the bad arm, couldn't support the weight. So Max came back again. He targeted Joe's left arm, and then he hit the Heat Seeker. Spiked him. Made the cover, but Joe kicked out. MJF tried for another Heat Seeker, but he blocked it. MJF then got the Salt of the Earth armbar applied. So he got the submission applied on the left arm of Samoa Joe. Joe, though, countered out of it. Now he's got the armbar applied to the bad arm. And MJF is writhing in pain. He starts crawling towards the ropes, slowly crawling towards the bottom rope. Adam Cole is right there. Adam Cole is outside the ring, and he's trying to cheer him on. And finally, he makes the bottom rope. Then we get the ref bump. Bryce Remsburg gets bumped in the corner. Down he goes, right? Remember? Angle alert. As soon as we saw Adam Cole, angle alert. Referee goes down. And Joe goes to the ropes. MJF sees there's no referee, so he gives him a low blow. This time, he got Joe on his shoulders. He even took a few steps with him, and he delivered an F5. I felt like I was watching Great Balls of Fire all over again. One F5, and it was over that night for Samoa Joe. Thankfully, this time, there was no referee. MJF looks over to Adam Cole. He calls for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And Adam Cole looks like he's, reaching in his pocket. He's fumbling around like he can't find it. And MJF is like, come on, give me the ring. And then finally he gets it and he goes to hand it to him. But now Joe has gotten back up to his feet. And honestly, that is the closest we came at any point during this match to Adam Cole doing anything that would make you think, uh-oh, he's going to turn on this guy. Right? Probably because they didn't want to give it away. They didn't want to make it too obvious. So he comes up from behind MJF and traps him in the coquina clutch. MJF kicks off the ropes into a pin attempt. Joe got out of it. He got the choke back on. And MJF is slowly fading. And finally the referee picks the arm up once, the arm falls once. He picks the arm up a second time, the arm drops a second time. He picks the arm up a third time, and the arm drops. And Bryce Remsburg has a look on his face like, oh shit, what do I do? Like, they didn't clue me in on the finish. I'm sure they did, but they didn't clue me in on the finish here. And the crowd too, they're like, wait, what? And he calls for the bell. That's it. Samoa Joe has put MJF to sleep with the coquina clutch, and Samoa Joe is the brand new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. In 18 minutes, Samoa Joe is once again a world champion. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, wow, that is not the finish that I was expecting, especially with Adam Cole out there. I'm still waiting for there to be an accidental something, or something is going to happen, right? There's a reason why he's out there. If he doesn't want MJF to keep the title, he's going to do something. It's going to backfire. But no. I mean, again, you can point to him fumbling around for the ring, but I mean, that's a weak excuse. This was about as clean as you would expect Samoa Joe to beat MJF, and he did. And just like that, he wins the world title. So now MJF, a few seconds later, he wakes up. And he sits up and he has no idea what just happened. Adam Cole gets into the ring to check on him and try to encourage him. The crowd starts chanting bullshit. They beat MJF in the main event here in his hometown. Okay. Now, 4 of the Devil's goons in all black appear outside the ring. They're lined up on the side of the ring right in front of the announce desk. And they're looking in the ring at MJF and Adam Cole, who brace themselves for combat. Cole's got the crutch, and I'm like, here we go. So the Devil's men get in the ring. Cole tried to fight one of them off with the crutch, but they grabbed him. Again, I think he's hurt, so he can't take a bump. So they grabbed him, and they got him down on his knees, and they grabbed his arms, and they held him. And Cole is yelling. There's a guy who's got a steel chair in the ring. And Cole is yelling at this guy, hit me with it, because it looks like he's going to hit MJF. And Cole is willing to sacrifice himself, and then you hear MJF scream, no, don't hit him, hit me with the chair, right? We get the melodramatic stuff here, like we got it all in. Then the lights go out. Lights are probably out for about 10 or 12 seconds. For a second there, I thought we had another blackout with my feed, but it was a blackout in the building. When the lights finally come back on, Adam Cole is sitting in the chair. And he's got a totally different expression on his face. Like now he can quit the act, right? Now the truth can come out. And all 4 of the Devil's men are lined up behind him as Cole is sitting in the chair. They all unmask, and it's Roderick Strong, it's Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Wardlow. They are the Devil's minions. MJF is distraught. He wants to know why. He comes over. He makes a motion over towards Adam Cole. Not like he's going to attack him, but like he's coming over to him. And all 4 of the other men, they lay a beat down on him. Wardlow power bombs MJF. Cole is sitting there. He reaches. He pulls out the devil mask, MJF's devil mask, and holds it up. And they all pose, stand over MJF's body. And that is how the show goes off the air. So we now have a new world champion and a new heel stable going into 2024 and kicking off the new year here in AEW. There was one main thing that Tony Khan had to accomplish tonight with this angle, with this main event. Give us the devil. He could not drag this out any longer and keep this interesting. It's like beating a dead horse. We needed the reveal so that we can move on to the next chapter of this story, whether it was Adam Cole or somebody else. And they went the predictable route. It was the answer that was right in front of us the entire time. It goes back to Wembley Stadium when he got beat by MJF. It's this jealousy. He doesn't like Max. He doesn't trust Max. And yet this guy beat him. Thinks he's his best friend. So he hatches this plan. Obviously, the injury wreaked havoc with whatever they were going to do, because I do believe he is hurt. To what extent? We'll find out. But he was still being very ginger. He was still, limping on that. Because you would think if they were going to do the big reveal, and this whole thing was a ruse all along, right? He'd be shaking the leg. He'd be doing jumping jacks in the ring. Like the whole thing would be a farce. But he didn't do that because he's hurt. But they needed to give us the reveal, and they did that. So that was the most important thing they had to do tonight, was tell us who this devil is, so that now we can pivot to the next chapter of this story. I believe that MJF is going to go away for a while, because MJF is hurt. He's banged up. He's hurt. His shoulder is fucked. His hip may be fucked. And he needs some time off. I don't think he's leaving the company. I don't think he's going to WWE yet. talk to me in 3 years. But he should take some time off, get himself healed up, and when he comes back, they can pick up and continue with the storyline. And if Adam Cole is still hurt and he's going to be out for a while, then it's fine. Right? It's fine. Let MJF take time off and heal up himself. Now Samoa Joe is the world champion. Now, as far as who his first opponent is going to be, I don't know. The first name that popped in my head was Hangman Page. But that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because Swerve Strickland beat him 2 straight. So why would Hangman get a title shot before him? Maybe Tony Khan goes the Tony Khan route and does a battle royal or a tournament to crown a #1 contender. But as I look ahead to what the potential main event for Revolution could be, what I would like to see is a Samoa Joe Swerve Strickland main event. They could very well put that world title on Swerve in the next few months, because I do believe he will be a world champion next year at some point, probably in the first half of 2024. But wherever they go with this, it put a smile on my face to see Samoa Joe holding up that AEW World title. And I don't know for how long he's going to hold on to it, but good for Joe. It's been too long since we've seen him as a world champion. He goes out there. He's been having matches almost weekly. Goes out there, he cuts fire promos, right? You could talk about how people get older, they get slower, they're all beat up and everything, and that's true. And he worked a tough style in Ring of Honor for all those years. The longest reigning Ring of Honor world champion there was 500 and something days, 600 days as champion. But one thing that hasn't changed, you put a microphone in that guy's hand, there's nobody better. I put him up against Punk and any other person you want to talk about in the wrestling business right now, MJF, right? Joe is among the elite talkers in this business. He could talk people into the building. So I'm very happy to see him get a run finally as a world champion and that he's been able to stay healthy. And when the show was over, I just felt like on the whole, it was a very middle of the road effort. The main event was it was a good match, but it was all about the Devil Reveal. Continental Classic final was very good. Copeland and Christian stole the show, and I love the opening 8-man tag. Most of the other stuff in the middle was fine, but it felt like standard television fare. This was not one of their strongest pay-per-views of the year, because AEW is always about putting out these banger pay-per-views. This one cannot hold a candle to their best shows in 2023. So if I had to go for a rating out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, what would I give World's End? I'd probably, for World's End, I'd probably feel comfortable going maybe 6.5 on this show tonight. Maybe a 7, somewhere in that range. I think that's fair. See what you guys thought with this Twitter poll. 2,000 votes in, 2,000 plus. 33% thumbs up, 35% thumbs in the middle, 32. Roughly 32% thumbs down. That's about as even as I have seen one of these pay-per-view polls. 33, 34, 32. And, again, as far as AEW pay-per-views go, you don't usually see polls like this. Usually that thumbs up rating is a lot higher. So looks like you and I are on the same wavelength when it comes to that. There you go. Now as we descend into the void of Naya's hole, you get into your the timing on that was impeccable.
Look, everyone, it's Samoa Bro.
There he is, your new world champion, Samoa Bro, joining us here. All right, let's get to your super chats here. What did you guys think of World's End and the news of the day? I'm very curious to see what was discussed and what was not discussed at the media scrum tonight. And what comments, if any, what questions were asked, if any, about the Chris Jericho situation, about MJF's status, what kind of answers we got. I'm guessing Jericho was not at the scrum. That would be my guess. Hey, Lakers Pats. Says Jericho has always been in the news for something. Or has to be in the news for something. The Winston slip. Is AEW better off with or without Cody?
With a tear in my eye.
I wouldn't say they're better off without him. I think that Cody's loss was a huge loss for that company. They would be better off with him than without him. Jackie Fowler with the $25. Hey, Jackie, thank you. Says, thank you for your feedback on my AJ versus Cody idea. If it happens, I do think AJ should throw a little dig in his promo on how he was a world champion in TNA. And Cody was not in AEW. Curious how you would book the feud. Well, I mean, if you have to have one babyface and one heel, Cody would be the babyface, AJ would be the heel. But again, the idea of them bringing that up, you know, in WWE, I can't imagine it being anything more than a passing comment. I would be shocked if WWE allowed them to spend more than 3 seconds talking about the fact that I was champion in TNA, you were champion, you were not champion in that other company. Just not the sort of thing that WWE does. And frankly, why do they have to? They don't even have to. Justin G, apologies in advance. Must see the scrum. Ace of Masta, congrats to Eddie and Joe finishing their stories. They finished their story before Cody did. Also says, SoCal is better than New York. Nick Grasso just left the arena. It was a very good show. Damn, Jericho got legit heat and loud Kylie Ray chants. Adam Cole is the devil, as we all knew, very obvious, but it made sense. It was a great experience at my first AEW show. I'm glad you had a good time. Thank you, brother. Jack Lopez, who is Joe's first challenger. Well, as I was just talking about, I don't know how they're going to set that up, but I'm hoping if he's not first, that Swerve is one of the first. He may not be number 1, but maybe he could be number 2. And honestly, he should be, if you think about it, right? He beat the former AEW World Champion 2 straight, including in the most violent match that I have ever seen. I mean, if that doesn't earn him the right to challenge for the world title, I don't know what does. Oz and Glorious. We'll start with Mr. E. Mr. E, 1976. Here's to the tip jar. Thanks for everything you do. And Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you as well, Mr. E. I appreciate you very much. Oz and Glorious. I enjoyed World's End. It was different, but still entertaining, and the Devil reveal was satisfying, even if it was as predictable as Cody winning at WrestleMania 4. Well, not everybody thinks that it is that predictable. DEH Sire is not a fan of the mid-card Mafia. You mean you're not a fan of Matt Taven and Mike Bennett in the top heel faction now in the company? William Sanchez, between the Jericho news and this show being very underwhelming, this was not a good day for AEW. Just for the Jericho stuff alone, this was not a good day for AEW. Justin G, Keith Lee injured since 2022 and bows out tonight. Yes. Was that a question? That is correct. We talked about Keith Lee earlier. $1 with the $20. It sucks. Injury prevented Adam Cole from being the current AEW champion. Joe deserves it, and I look forward to all the title defenses we are about to get. Joey Jojo Jr. Didn't watch the whole show. We'll watch tomorrow, but Joe winning is the right call. No way anyone, Joe or the Devil, would look credible with an MJF win. Well, you know, again, you're coming off 2 shows now. The last show, he basically was a one-legged man, and he beat Jay White. Tonight, he was a one-arm man. And you really have to be careful. You know, people talking about MJF not being as fun or as cool or as good in this babyface role as he was as a heel. You got to be careful you don't turn him into Super Cena, which is kind of what they have started to do. And that's not good, because that's part of what got people to turn on him in the first place. And I know he was still the biggest star in the company, but those are not the reactions you want MJF to be getting. Black Wolf, going home from World's End and currently wandering through Long Island. Had a great time being there after WWE MSG. I saw MJF's reign start and end live. No cap. All the real life drama aside, AEW really fell apart when they decided to turn MJF babyface. Push Swerve already. You know what's a shame is that if they don't belt MJF again in the next few months, that tease that we got for him and Swerve may not happen. I mean, if MJF is locked down the way that I think he is, it could still happen. It could happen with Swerve as champion and MJF as challenger. But to have that backstage segment as great as it was on television last week, and then to not get the match anytime in the near future, that kind of sucks. Nick Grosso. Being in the arena, I can say Julia Hart has the best entrance in AEW. Also, Swerve's entrance in person was great too. Yeah, Swerve might have her beat, but Julia's whole presentation is actually very, very good. The music too. You know, the entrance, the music. Yeah, the way she's developed that character, I think she's come a long way from where she was even, a year ago, 18 months ago. The new movement, Eric Bischoff WCW or Tony Khan AEW? Which one would you rather have in 2024? Well, Bischoff WCW 96-97. Because that was their best period. It was only a small period, but if you're going to pick Bischoff, that's the period to pick him from. Until things went off the rails. Later in 98 into 99. El Prezcat. Jim Cornette will have a field day on Kevin Dunn leaving. Well, I'd be surprised if he's not throwing a party. John 10. Tony Khan actually said AEW has the best safety record. Is that what he said? Really? You know, the Mets had to do a little bit of cleaning with their medical staff a few years ago. I think AEW may need to do the same. Adrian Moore. I'm annoyed at the AEW diehards who take any criticisms and will talk to you very disrespectfully and white knight for them like Tony Khan is their daddy. Oh yeah. I deal with those people on a weekly basis. And there are people who do that for WWE too, but the AEW ones they're in a different class. They're in a whole different category. Paul Carpenter, show was very boring. Edge and Christian killed it. Joe should be a great champion. Cole was obvious. Birthday is day one. Great week for wrestling. Well, happy birthday to you, Paul. I guess that means your birthday? Talking about Joe? Well, if it's your birthday, happy birthday. Colin C. Congratulations, Samoa Joe. Finally, AEW has a Samoan world champion that is not related to The Rock. Funny enough, WWE and AEW now both have world champions that are Samoans named Joe. How about that? Paul Carpenter. Real wood. Cry me a river, says Nick. Omar with the $5. The ultimate opportunist tasted his own medicine. Love when a face who used to be a heel gets outsmarted by his own tactics. That's a good point. That is a very edge move that Christian pulled. BCom see clearly Tony Khan needs to be a fucking boss in 2024. Let me tell you something. Depending on how things play out with this Jericho stuff, I think it may be, it could be a very interesting time for Tony Khan. As far as what he knows, knew, or did not know. Jose Perez, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Jose Perez, I don't watch AEW on the regular, but I decided to shed the $50 at the last minute out of sheer curiosity. Had its moments. Reveal was expected, no Sasha. Bit of an L. Happy New Year, bro. Happy New Year to you too, Jose. Yeah, no Mercedes. We don't know for sure if she's AEW bound. We just know that her discussions with WWE supposedly fell apart. Let me caution everybody, okay? After CM Punk in November, take all of these reports with a mound of salt. WWE did a very good job with the Punk stuff of plugging up whatever leaks there may have been, keeping things under wraps. Very possible, same situation with Mercedes. So whatever you're reading and whatever you're hearing, just keep that in mind after what happened at Survivor Series last month. Don't take it for 100%. DEH says Andrade's first and last pay-per-view match. Yeah, you know, that was his one and only singles match on pay-per-view in all the years he's been in AEW, which is kind of crazy. Now, AEW doesn't have as many pay-per-views. They don't have monthly pay-per-views like WWE has, but still, he's been there for what, 2 years now? 3 years? For this to be his first singles match on a pay-per-view is pretty fucking nutty. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he wants out. Silver Tower. I was so certain it was going to be Roddy because of how bitter and jealous he was of the friendship, so I was pleasantly surprised. Also says, since Solo hates kangaroos, he should be forced to fuck a kangaroo pouch. Have you been drinking? It's not New Year's yet. You're not supposed to hit the sauce yet. I don't know where that came from. Base Beer says Silver Tower heel turn. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I think that Silver Tower lost his mind. Lady Fire Panda, I'm sorry, do what to a kangaroo pouch? Yeah, I think we're gonna skip over that. The tall one. People are going to giggle at what Tony Khan was wearing when addressing the sexual assault allegations and not pay attention to his dog shit response. I can't wait to see this scrum. DEH says you could ask Tony Khan what his favorite color is and he'll give you a 5-minute response about the color and how great AEW is. No wonder the scrums are 2 hours long. Oh boy. Ross Lawman. Didn't Wardlow also pretend not to find the ring in MJF's feud with Punk in the strap match, or have I just made that up? Glad Wardlow is involved. No, he did. He did the same thing. You're right. And then I think he found it just in time to kind of leave it for CM Punk. Base Beer says the devil is such an unoriginal concept. Should have been the kangaroo. Tuxedo T Servo, thank you for the $10. Rumple Main. Rumple Main, thank you. I just read that in my head. Omar, Swerve versus Ospreay. Cole versus MJF in the rubber match. The co-main event. As well as Tony against Hayter for the women's title at All In. I'll be doing my predictions on that tomorrow. I have a couple of matches in mind for All In, including Swerve. I don't want to give it away right now. But those would be fine choices, I would say. BCom see clearly, can we do an all-star Be the Booker to end the year? Happy New Year's, happy holidays. Thank you, brother. We did beat the goal, so we will be doing Be the Booker here in a little bit. Ross says, Y2J against Punk 2024 SummerSlam. Please, God, no. And Dylan Taylor, thank you, Solo, for a good year turned in. Let's keep it going in 2024. Hey, Dylan, you have been fined by Brian Danielson. There you go. Buddy calling me a kangaroo hater. Thank you guys for the super chats. Again, hit that like button if you have not already done so. We are on the verge of 900, so that is well above what I asked of you. I Thank you very much for that. Let me just mention that tomorrow I will be live with you, probably around 10 p.m. I'll keep you guys posted on Twitter. 10 p.m. Eastern is when I will be going live for the New Year's stream, and we will ring in the new year together. We'll talk predictions for 2024, among other things. So I do hope to see you back here tomorrow night. But before we get there, let us go ahead and be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
All right, it is time to be the booker. So let us see what we can do here on a pay-per-view night. We're gonna book ourselves some matches. This is what we do here. We book some random matches using all kinds of wrestling talent from the past, the present. You never know who's going to pop up in here. It's just a fun thing that we do. Get you thinking, about these matches. Kick things off here with Strike Force. Tito Santana and Rick Martel, former WWF Tag Team Champions. They were a very good team. Strike Force was a very good team. They were a team when I was growing up a wrestling fan. And we got Strike Force taking on Los Conquistadors. Los Conquistadors. Look at this. They look like a couple of dicks. And yet they have the tag team titles on, which means that must be Edge and Christian, if I remember. Oh, the Conquistadors. Let's move on. We can do better. We can do better than that. Let's go to the Edge. Not the Edge. Let's go to the women's Be the Booker. And look at this. On her way back to AEW, we got a return vignette tonight. And here she is and Be the Booker, Serena Deeb. The Professor. El Professor. Well, I guess it wouldn't be El. It would be La Profesora, right? Serena Deeb going to go one-on-one with Mercedes Martinez. See that? I could see that as a Ring of Honor match. I could see Tony Khan putting that match on Ring of Honor. All right, here we go. Men's Be the Booker. Not a very inspiring card tonight, so I want to end on a high note here. I want to end on a high note. Come on now. Come on. We can do better. There we go. Is that Tony Khan there at the presser tonight? Hey, that guy looks familiar. There we go. Bret the Hitman Hart. The best there is, the best there was, and the best that there ever will be. I like where this is headed. Bret Hart going to go one-on-one with Shane McMahon. Look at Shane. It looks like he has diverticulitis here in this image right here. Is he holding his midsection for? We got to go with the version of Shane McMahon that we see here in the image. I mean, there's only so much that Bret Hart can do. I mean, Bret Hart was great, but I mean, he was no, he's no wizard. I can't believe I just gave the buzzer to a Bret Hart match. That's got to be a first. I don't think I've ever done that before. That match would slap. I should slap you for saying that. Oh, man. Not the best night for Be the Booker. All right, we got some more super chats coming in here. Guys are trying to keep me around. Let's see what you guys have to say before we get on out of here. Omar says, Tony Khan got asked about the Jericho stuff 3 times. Said that he's not going to respond to unsourced internet rumors, but they have a committee and an open door policy on these matters. What is your opinion? I have to see it for myself. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I have to see it for myself. not going to comment on it until I've seen it myself. I'll watch the scrum after the fact. Silver Tower, I've been drinking heavily. I could tell. I've been drinking heavily. Even Jake Roberts is telling me to calm down. Well, if he's telling you to calm down, you better calm down. Ricardo. Tony Khan really did say that AEW was the best company in terms of safety. I think he was drinking with Silver Tower. Wapatapa, you were right, Solo. Run track like we run train. I don't know what that means. Ross says, Solo getting canceled in Australia as we speak. It's a good thing I have no travel planned there anytime soon. And Base Beers, Silver Tower, been sipping on that woo energy. Remember, they got mushrooms in that. I know they say they're functional, but I'm not so sure about that. And Turtlehead has one coming in. What if Samoa Joe's first feud is with Darby? Well, it was almost a year ago at this time, right? That Darby won the TNT title back from Joe. Right? Was it on the first Dynamite of this year, I think? Look, anytime you can get Darby in the ring with Joe and have Joe just throwing him around, it's always fun to watch. But I don't know. It depends on Darby's availability. You know, again, he's getting ready for a big climb in a few months. He took some time off recently. He was overseas. He was training. I think Darby would be a fine first feud for Joe. Just depends on whether or not he's going to be around. And Ross says Brett losing his shit at Shane's matches would be fire. Dr. Bropio, sadly, we end 2023 Be the Booker under 500. That stretch of terrible women's matches during the summer did no favors. We did have a pretty awful run there for a while on the women's matches. But thank you, Dr. Bropio. There you go. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here late. Thank you for the love. And I hope you will bring that same spirit with you tomorrow night so we can ring in 2024 together. We have a lot to talk about. Honestly, I might even debate recording something and dropping it during the day. I don't know. We'll see. There's just so much. There's so much to cover. But we will go live tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern, right back here on the channel. I hope to see you there. If you missed it, my Iron Claw movie review is up on the channel as well. I saw the movie this week. Got a full review up on that. If you missed it, make sure you check that out. So until then, be well, stay safe, have yourselves a great night. As I bid you adieu here on a late Saturday night. Base Beerus wants to know, buy or sell Marilyn Monroe or Toni Storm? Toni Storm, of course. She's timeless. See you guys for the New Year's stream. Have a good night.